Welcome to Nostalgia Pilots, a Gundam fan cast that is the one thing that gives me hope. I'm Hugh.
I'm Jurd.
And I'm Spence. Spence will be joining us shortly.
And today we're talking about Gundam the 8th MS Team, Episode 8, Duty and Ideals.
I was wondering if the opening line was going to be about getting shot in the junk, but we can talk about that later.
I did enjoy that shot.
Yeah, that's good. So I was a little confused at the very opening of this episode because I was like, wow, Shiro's on trial. We're finally going to get some justice around here. Did I miss an episode where he committed a horrible war crime? But no.
They got caught.
Yeah, our lovers got busted.
Yeah, he got busted making out with Aina in the snow.
Which is funny. So he's standing trial in front of an actual, tribunal, whereas she's just getting berated by her brother in the grossest possible way imaginable.
Yeah, I do like the fact that they've started, drawing her brother with, crazy eyes.
Yeah, he's slipping into madness. So when did All in Black come to represent a woman dressing as if she is in love?
I'm not sure.
Because I don't know what it said in the sub, but in the dub, he's like, I notice you're dressing much more feminine lately, almost as if a woman in love. But she's wearing this black shirt. It looks, no indication to me that this is.
I think it's because it's form fitting and less childish, I guess.
Oh, maybe because I guess every interstitial shot we get of her, she's wearing in the commercial bumpers, I guess. I mean, she's wearing these very feminine, very, pink and frilly kind of thing. So it just seemed like a weird call. And also kind of lecherous on her brother's part, which just felt very awful.
Well, yeah. But that's kind of the vibe that they started with. Then they're like, no, that's not what's going on. And now, yeah, that's what's going on.
Yeah. I did like that we have the two of them just sort of across a tea table glowering at each other. Whereas Shiro's literally in a box and they're projecting screens of all these commanders on the wall around him.
Yeah.
They're cutting across in a really interesting way as they're responding to this questioning.
Yeah, it was kind of fun how they kept going back and forth. Sorry, Banks?
No, it also just shows you just how on both sides leadership doesn't care, really. It's almost as if the judgment has already been passed on both of them, even though she's being judged by her brother.
Oh, yeah, well, that's extra underlined by the fact that the only thing their judgment comes down to for Shiro is, yeah, okay, but do you think you can still murder him? You still okay with murdering him? Yeah, all right, get out there, champ.
Yeah, and I think this probably is to be fair, if it wasn't super set against the awkward brother-sister conversation, this would be a really poignant scene because he tells them out and out, he's like, I don't necessarily know, because again, he's already spoken out and said that he kind of doesn't agree with this war. He doesn't understand the point of it. And that is, again, with the Vietnam analogy and all that good stuff. So he, they're just like, well, if you can pull the trigger, it's fine. And it just shows you how there's a disconnect between what's going on the ground and what the higher ups want. And it's symbolized by the fact that they're not even there. They're physically not there. They're just heads on a wall passing judgment on him and even laughing at him.
Yeah, Shiro believes in the power of love, so they all start breaking up, which was pretty hilarious in itself.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, if it wasn't super set with that creepy scene, if she was in front of a tribunal for Zion or whatever, and her brother was supposed to be there as her defender and then turns on her, I feel like it would have shown a much better message that they're trying to get with this Vietnam analogy. But we have to throw in the creepy brother-sister thing that anime has a lot of, and it just kind of steals from both sides of this thing.
Yeah, that's the thing that kind of bothers me. Not just the weird incest thing, but they sort of keep cutting back and forth between the idea that the only thing that Genias cares about is his robot, and he needs her to pilot it versus he's actually got a thing for her, and they can't really decide which one they're going on at any one given time.
He either extremely doesn't care or he is totally like infatuated.
And I would think that they could have done a better job of showing why he specifically thinks she needs to pilot it, right? Like, she's not been shown to be any better of a pilot than any other person. Like, she's not been shown, like, if this was like Mobile Suit Gundam, she would have probably been shown to have like new type traits or something that made her better than any other subject to be the test pilot of this thing. The only thing she's got going for her, quote unquote, is that she's his sister. Like, she's not, matter of fact, the 2 times she's been out in this thing have not gone well. Like, it got wrecked the first time, and then the second time it literally crashed. So, like, it's not like she's shown any, abilities above and beyond anyone else. So I don't see why he's got this hard on to keep her around to pilot this thing, especially if they think she's a traitor.
She lost to a ball.
Yeah. So this does bring us, though, to the crux of the episode, the most important thing, and really what I wish the show had been about since the start, the generic Zaku squad who end up dead by the end of the episode.
Oh, easily. You're speaking about my new favorite character, Commander. I don't think she gets a name.
Oh, absolutely. All 3 of those. I would have, even the jerk, I would have found this a more interesting show to have watched this squad trudging around in faux Vietnam than the guys we've gotten. Although
no. Rapey Arse, whatever his name is, he needed to die the way he died.
Oh yeah, no, his death was righteous.
I'm sure that he did that a lot more times leading up to this. I would not watch that show.
Yeah, fair.
But I did like when he was being rapey, he was like, "I will shoot you and say you were killed by the enemy. Do not test me."
Yes, the commander is a badass. And, okay, so I do have a question. It's a bit of a technical aspect. Her Zaku specifically has something that I've never seen on a Zaku before, which is it's got a little fin, which I think is supposed to denote her position in command. But it also has a line that comes down through the sort of eye slot where usually the dot is, so that essentially she has one eye with the Zaku glowing dot. I don't know if you noticed that. I've never seen this design before. I don't know if this is a common thing denoting rank. I guess I'm asking Hugh and Banks if you guys have seen this anywhere.
I think this falls under how almost all Gundam shows do. Like, if you are considered a badass, you get something unique about your Gundam. I mean, obviously his was powered by space rockets and machismo. Zex, he got the only other thing comparable to the Wing Gundam, and he got a Zero system. In Mobile Suit Gundam, he got the Gundam. He got the titular Gundam. So I think that's for her, that unique character design for her Zaku, because the rest of the Zaku is basically the same. And to be fair, she's also the only one. She's the last one standing once the rebels have taken out the other members of her crew. So she's kind of going at it alone. I mean, even at one point, I think she's got one arm, I think. Because of some rocket attacks. And I will say, with this whole segment, by the way, you can tell this is a very important section because the animation quality goes up. The scene with the guy who gets killed by the boosters of the Zaku in the house.
Ooh.
That's a really good scene. It's really well.
Yeah.
That was really well done, and also the reactions from the villagers was also really well animated and well acted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think her suit's actually a little sleeker than the other two. Like, they're bulkier than hers is.
Yeah, I got that impression too. It's interesting, though, to go back to what Spence was saying earlier. So you do get the one really awful side fellow who's just constantly causing issues. But then the other guy, I thought it was very interesting that he's portrayed as, like, very little characterization. But you get a shot of him in the cockpit, and he's got a picture of a kid up. And then he does something nice for a kid further down the road, where he makes, like, a little helmet out of a expense shell casing or something. And it's very, like, it's just a couple seconds, but then when they get into a fight with each other and he's killed, it really does add an extra layer to it. that whole scene where sort of the Zakus come into the village. They're really just looking for food. The commander's trying to keep things under control, but you have Awful McAwful there just constantly ramping things up. And, now Shiro's got something to prove, so he's busting ass out of the little cell he's quasi-held in, although not really. And that whole scene actually was probably the most effective set piece of the show so far for me.
Well, and it's good writing. It's good writing to show that there are humans on both sides of this war. And so, you're going to have the people who joined the war to be terrible people. But then you've got people on the other side that joined up for ideological reasons, but don't want to hurt anybody. They just want to do what's right by their country.
And she also says at one point that they're on the run, but it never really says, like, who they're on the run from.
There's sort of this air of mystery about them, because they just kind of come staggering along a river, and they're already quite beaten up.
I think that they are actually on the run from other Federation forces, because late in the earlier part of the show, before they all commit treason by breaking their commander out, quote unquote, and going on this unsanctioned mission with federal government equipment, they say that they found the Zeons with their underground radar. Like so I'm guessing that they had been tracking them from some other altercation, and they just kind of so happened to run across this village that's deep in the jungle. So I think they're just running from other Federation forces.
Okay.
But one of the things I think, Spence, you hit on this, is that the writing is really well done. But I think to go along with that, the action of the actual rebels against these mechs is wonderful. The way they set traps, the way they attack from multiple angles. Mm-hmm. I think it's an effective way to show guerrilla tactics against a much stronger force. And they don't come out unscathed. I mean, the sequence where Shiro's answer is tested, she fires these awesome weapons that I wish had been used earlier. They're basically projectile claymores that she just shoots into the air, and then they rain down projectiles onto her Zaku and the charging rebel forces. Like, it's a really good scene because it pushes Shiro to make the choice. Does he kill her, or does he keep playing, softball and just try to make her surrender? And I think it's really, really good. Like, it's just the last half of this episode is just really, really good, and it's up there for me out of all the ones we've seen thus far.
I 100% agree.
Like, and I do like that. Like, Shiro actually manages with his sidearm to knock two of them out of the air before they go off.
That was a very Hero Yui scene for me. Yeah.
Oh no! But we're forgetting the one part. He dodges her beam rifle like he's 8-Man. Like, he literally dodged it like he had cybernetic.
He Neo'd that part. Absolute Neo Matrix, just dodged out of the way.
Well, that was plot armor.
But also, as Jurd brought up at the beginning of the episode, crotch shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does.
And he had burning soil on top of him. That had to be painful.
So can we just say at this point, if you are a Gundam series main character, you are immune to most things that would be, explosive, burning, cause death or injury to you. Like, because again, he has burning soil, like embers on top of him. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, that beam rifle was as big as him. Okay. And he just dodges, like, it's...
I mean, that thing has to radiate heat. Like, you can't just dodge it.
Yeah.
That's not how lasers work.
So, while we're talking on Shiro, actually, I wanted to bring up his new outfit, because it seems like in this episode he's in a much more, like, a white shirt kind of situation. He's got a little bandage on his face most of the episode.
He's taken off his uniform. This is not a military sanctioned thing, and even though the old man is like, here's a requisition for you to go, for orders for you to go and actually do this thing under sanction. And while Karen and Sanders are like, yeah, we'll take this. We don't want to get a court martial. Shiro doesn't want that. I feel like that's partially because he's still reeling from the Inquisition, with Aina, with his feelings for Aina being in question, but he's also doesn't want to put his squad in any more danger than he already has. I feel like that is supported by his orders to Michelle and Karen and Sanders, telling them to fire from super far away. I think they said 10 clicks away, 10 miles away. And also, telling Michelle after he gets all the wires out, go back to the hover tank and wait.
Okay, so so Shiro is like spooling all these wires throughout the whole issue. Like, what was that episode? What was that for? That wasn't clear to me.
It could be a couple of different things.
I thought that it was potentially tripwires and or claymore mines of some sort of trap, or maybe something to help them either know when they were coming or to help defend the area. But they don't actually show you what they're connected to.
Well, part of it is that his plan is his intention is to lure the Zakus out of the village so that the villages are out of danger. And it's actually the villagers themselves that insist on pressing the confrontation to the point where they can't escape, and they're basically shooting the Zakus in the village itself, which is what forces Shiro to improvise and shoot his Zaku in the junk. But I think, back to Spence's point, Shiro's wrestling with exactly the crux of every Gundam show I've watched so far. And I know that they're probably not all like this, but it's that whole, we're really the same on both sides, and really if we could just get past this thing, we would be fine. But also, war is hell, and isn't it awesome when I shoot a Zaku in the dick? Like, it's really... Yeah.
It's like, if we wouldn't have war if we could only understand each other.
I also think one of the things that I think from this we'll get a much more mature Shiro because of the fact that he's actually making decisions that are not selfish or self-indulgent like he's done in the past, where he's gone off solo and nearly gotten himself and people that go after him killed. He's actually trying to protect them and the people. I think it's a sign that he's actually developed into something more than just this gung-ho combat-oriented leader that we saw at the very beginning of the show, which is surprising because just last episode we have romance in the fallen snow machine created hot spring thing. And I feel like that's because of the shortness of the show, but it still is good to see.
A little bit of it, yeah.
Even if he's one with the Matrix and can dodge all things and be impervious to any damage.
But speaking of maturity, though, the brother, we can't leave out the brother being basically told that he's no longer in command of his own ship, and then going Elvis on the television.
Right. So Officer Gunshow, Yuri Kilarney, calls him, and he's like in a bathrobe. And he's like, yeah, we need to get to space, and we need your power source and your flagship, so we're on the way, and your project is canceled, and your project was never gonna make a difference anyway.
He read a book about trays and his bathwater, and he's like, well, I'm gonna do this bathrobe thing.
I feel like Commander Gunshow is in the wrong anime. I feel like if you put him in like a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure or a Fist of the North Star, he'd be right at home.
Oh, well, yeah, this dude cool walked away from a nuclear bomb. He is totally channeling Fist of the North Star.
Yeah, like he doesn't have to talk to that guy because he's already dead. Like he's like, you know what? I don't need your permission to take your ship. It's already mine. Like he's great. But there was something, I don't know, because I came in a little late. I don't know if you talked about this, but can we talk about the creep factor that's creeping throughout all this show with the Rebel Girl's dad? We have not discussed that. When he was telling to his second in command or whatever, and he's like, yeah, I knew when I saw my daughter looking at that guy, she had become a woman. Whoa! whoa, man.
You know what? I'm actually going to go the other way. I thought it was a little positive. I was like, oh, no, that's good. He's not being all weird and like, I'm going to get a shotgun and chase that man off my porch. Like,
My only problem is she's like 15. Like
well, yeah. Yeah, that
Well,
part's
and I
wrong.
think in the sub, it's even like, well, she has a thing for that Fed, doesn't she? And the other guy's like, yeah, but they're kids.
Yeah. See, in the dub, he makes it seem like because she's now having these feelings, quote unquote, she is now becoming a woman. And I'm like, whoa.
Well, that's a little bit. It's like they're kids, but he's sort of like, well, I trust her to make good decisions, and I think she's going to lead well when I'm gone. This is not foreshadowing for anything that's about to happen 5 minutes from now.
I'm not about to be scorched by the jump jet on a Zaku or anything.
Oh, poor dad. Oh,
So
that dude who already lost an eye and was in a wheelchair.
yeah, that actually leads us nicely to the end of the episode, which is basically war is hell, right? Where they've managed to take out these 3 Zakus, and they've captured what's-her-face, and the villagers are all severely injured from the anti-personnel weapon that she's fired at the end, and so they're essentially licking their wounds and crying and weeping together.
They didn't capture her. Shiro killed her.
Yeah, Shiro,
yeah.
Yeah, he had to kill her.
Shiro had to make the call to save the villagers, and he pulled the trigger, but the villagers still didn't make it. Like most of the guerrillas still didn't make it.
Right.
Yeah, because they didn't listen to him when he was like, "Dog, don't get close." And they just rushed in. And I was really worried. I thought that she didn't have the anti-personal rounds to defend herself. And I thought that they were going to literally hack her to pieces.
Yeah, I thought that was the lesson we were going to get, is that was the war is hell. Like, no matter who you try to help, it's going to be awful. But, well, that was the lesson, but not the way that I was worried it was going to play out.
Yeah, and what sucks is now most of the rebels are gone. Their leader's daughter's alive, of course, because she's got plot armor. But the rest of them are just, I mean, there's like what, 5, 6, maybe, rebels left, and then there's the people that are left in the village to pick up the pieces. Like, it's pretty savage a way to end this.
Yeah, like she fell through a roof and she was fine. Like that's the part we missed, is that the reason that the guerrillas attacked is because the creeper dude like picked up Kiki and then dropped her.
Yeah, he deserved every last bit of what he got in this.
Yeah.
I do also like that early on the rebels do show that they are not rebels against the Fetties, not rebels against Zeon, but they're just rebels against this whole thing because they've allowed both. They allowed the Federation forces in the village, and they've let the Zeon forces in the village. They told the Zeons, like, look, y'all can come in and get supplies or do whatever. Just leave your mechs out of the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're essentially like separatists. They don't have a dog in this fight. They're working for their own independence.
Yeah,
they're caught between the two forces, really.
Yeah, and so I think, I think Jurd, you hit the nail on the head. I think if this entire series had been based around probably the rebels going against both of these guys and just showing us that type of ground combat versus everybody else, that type of stuff, I think this would be a far more entertaining series because I feel like there's more characterization amongst the rebels than actually amongst the main cast of the 8th MS team, because we don't get a lot of Karen or Scruff McGruff in this episode. We don't get a lot of them in this episode. Like,
yeah, that's true.
We do get a great moment from Sanders in this episode, though, when the two jerks from 7th Squad come in and they sort of give the news that, yep, that village is going to get burned by Zeon, and we're not doing anything. And you guys certainly aren't doing anything because you're grounded. Sucks to be you. Like, Sanders just kind of like takes a drink, goes up to the one guy and's like, thanks for the information, let me buy you a drink, and just like pours it over his head.
But better yet, it's a champagne flute.
Yeah,
like, why is Sanders is the classiest drinker in the show for some reason.
Oh, no, yeah, he was like at a piano and he was drinking champagne.
And Karen, being the best wingman ever, grabs the other one and is like covering her mouth. And then we get a huge character growth moment for Michelle. He books it out of the bar after looking at another letter from BB, but he leaves the letter and books it out of the bar to go find Shiro. And I thought that was a really telling, really strong growth moment for him.
But also kind of subtle, like not, super dear subtle, BB, I grew up today.
Yeah, super subtle, but it's something that really jumped out at me, and I noticed because the old man, it goes, "Hey kid, you forgot your letter," and I'm sitting here going, "Oh God, this is big."
Yeah, unlike his, yeah. So does that bring us to favorite moments then?
Yeah.
I think so. And my favorite was definitely like the command style of the Xeon commander. Like she was awesome, and I wanted to see more of her. And then it was just, I think, like as good a character as she was in what little time we had with her, just underscored the tragedy of like the events that happen in that field.
Yeah,
like when we see her like giving orders, being like, "We are not here causing trouble. We are just going to get food and we're going to go and behave yourself. Arth, I am looking at you. I don't want the repeat of the last 3 villages we went to."
And you know what's funny about that is because she's trying to get them in and out to the village, which means that they're not there to burn the village.
No.
But the Fetties tell them that, and it's kind of like because of that misinformation, this conflict happens.
Yeah, it's all basically a big misunderstanding in the end on all sides, right? Like even the guerrillas are constantly like, "Let's go, let's go, let's go," and everyone's just like, the commander's like, "Let's stay calm, let's stay calm." And if they had just stayed chill throughout, it wouldn't have happened. I'm actually going to leverage off of Hugh's favorite. My favorite thing about this episode, strong writing, strong everything around, but I'm still going to stick with the one-eyed Zaku. That design is somehow so cool. The fact that it looks like it's missing an eye, even though it's just an electronic eye and giant robots don't need eyes in the first place. I'm all for it.
I would have to say mine would be that last bit of the combat where she's down and she uses the anti-personnel mines. I think that was a good touch because it fed into that dynamic where this is a much more powerful enemy, and these rebels have bitten off way more than they can chew if they try to play it this aggressive. And I just think like that weaponry, the combat is just my favorite part of this episode. It's probably the best combat we've seen thus far outside of the underwater fight between Shiro and the underwater Zaku way back in the beginning parts of this series. I think it was like episode 1 or 2.
For me, it was the fact that throughout this whole episode, there were immediate consequences for people's actions. You had the consequences of Shiro and Aina having their moment and getting caught. You had the 7th team coming and mouthing off, and so the 8th team had their brawl. You had Shiro going off on his own and not having a plan, and a whole bunch of people died. You had Kiki throwing a bowl of rice in this admittedly rapey guy's face and getting dropped, which then led to that guy getting a bazooka in the face, which then led to that village burning down. So the immediacy, the chain reaction of those events, they played out well, if you can call this mass destruction and this really emotional event of war and the casualties of war playing out well. But it really hit it home. It hit every note perfectly, and it gave feels in such a very visceral way.
Absolutely.
Does anyone else have anything we didn't cover?
Nope, my notes are done.
I'm glad Arthur's dead.
Well, yeah, double check box on that.
Yeah, well,
the only other thing I wanted to mention that I was struck by was the scene where Genias just shoots the TV and he just like keeps shooting it. And then he turns the gun on Ina, but it's empty.
Yeah.
But he definitely pulled the trigger on her like 5 minutes after being very possessive.
I would like to know more about why he's sick and why he can't pilot his own mobile suit, because we've seen in the earliest episodes of his introduction that he is sick or enfeebled somehow, but we don't know why, and he's not shown signs of it since. In fact, all we've seen that could potentially lead to discussion of his illness is that he's just had a mental break, like the possessiveness with his sister, that television scene, and then pulling the trigger on her after that shows that that illness may not just be physical, it may also be mental as well. I think that'll be an interesting thing to play out later on if they keep with it. He could meet a grisly end before that develops. I don't know. Who knows? He could decide to pilot himself and feel like he's got the machismo to do so. And we all know how that ends when you think you have machismo and you do not.
Yes. Poor Otto.
All right, Otto.
Still. So thanks for listening. You can find notes to all our stuff at nostalgiapilots.com. Follow us on Twitter at nostalgiapilots and send us email at nostalgiapilots@gmail.com. You can find all my business over at hughjodonnell.com.
You can find mine over at skinner.fm.
You can find me at nerdswithvoices.com.
And you can find me at resonantmoon.com.
Until next week, we will be back with the next episode of Gundam the 8th MS Teen Frontline, in which Elidor's back. Yay!
Yay! All right, guys. I got a drunken prospector trying to sell me a license to kill. I gotta go.
All right.
Word.
That's why you're still a newbie. Good night!